Hey moviegoers, for some reason I just wanted to talk about time travel movies, and I have a very special guest here to do it with me. I have Durban from Durbania. Durban, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
What's up? Thank you so much, Mike, for having me come on your channel. Love your channel, by the way. I'm excited to get to be on it, so thank you so much for reaching out to me with this, because this is going to be really fun. I love future movies, I love time travel movies, and I love it when those two kind of crisscross together. So I'm very much looking forward to talking about that with you. And I do have this channel, Durbania, which you can find right here on YouTube.
Absolutely, guys. I am a big fan of Durban's channel, Durbania. He's got a lot of great content. He does this series that I love. It's called the Theological Analysis of Movies. He takes some movies that are, kind of subpar, but he tells a great message through these movies. And definitely check out Durban's channel, guys, and go subscribe there and check out our video that we did over there on our top 5 future movies that were set in the future. I had a lot of fun talking about those movies, and definitely go out over there and check out his channel. So without further ado, we are just going to dive right into this with our honorable mentions. Durban, what do you have for your honorable mentions?
All right, well, for my honorable mentions, kicking it off is Men in Black 3, which is probably my second favorite in the Men in Black trilogy. I like this one. I thought this one had some good heart in it, and it was fun. And, it's hilarious that you have Will Smith climbing up to the top of the Empire State Building and jumping down, and this is the way that you build up the speed or whatever. I prefer a car going 88 miles per hour to jumping off a building, but whatever. So he jumps off this building, travels back in time, and it's just hilarious to see a young Agent K, a young Tommy Lee Jones, Josh Brolin, I believe, actually. And so it's really cool to see these characters interact. It's a lot of fun, on top of the fact that I've always liked time travel stuff, and it was really cool to see them take the Men in Black trilogy and bring it back full circle. Like, what is it Agent K saw in Agent J back in the first movie? Well, it's Agent J came way back in time, they met way back in time, and then when Will Smith's dad in this movie died, it's Agent K that kind of looked after him a little bit. So it's like a really cool kind of touching way to close out the Men in Black trilogy. So that one is definitely in my honorable mentions. My next one, a classic Jean-Claude Van Damme, Time Cop. This one is just a good movie. It's like, and it's one of those ridiculous ones that I think this movie came out in 1994. So I don't know why they thought in the year 2004 we would have self-driving cars and this crazeball technology just within a decade, including time travel. Like, I have no idea why they would even begin to think that. But once you get past that and enjoy this movie for what it is, it's a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. There's no other way to defend it other than to say that. That's all that it is. I liked it. I liked his fight scenes. I thought it was a great story. Great story of him trying to save his wife, save his family in the past. And every time I watch a time travel movie and I see somebody from the past or from the future meeting the past version of themselves, I always think, don't go shake their hand. Same space cannot occupy same matter at the same time. So I always think that. Such a fun movie.
I unfortunately have not seen that movie. I want to.
Well,
but I haven't.
I would say you should. I don't know if it's worth it or not. If you have a chance to see it without paying money for it, jump on that.
Okay. I will keep that in mind.
And then I think my next one, and this one is only in my honorable mentions, just because, I haven't seen this movie that much. I don't really own this franchise, which I should remedy that and watch it more, because I really did enjoy it when I watched it, but it just wasn't one that I jumped on right away. So Terminator 2 is actually in my honorable mentions. And it's a good movie, though. I liked it. I liked the difference between the first one and this one, like Arnold Schwarzenegger coming back as a good character and, saving John Connor. And I thought it was a good movie. And I love Schwarzenegger movies, so. But, yeah, I need to watch it more, and then maybe I could put it up in the actual list.
I have to make a bold statement and say that was the last good Terminator movie.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I have not been... Salvation was okay. I thought, okay, an interesting take looking at it from the other point of view, but yeah, nothing has lived up to Terminator or Terminator 2.
No. Well, my honorable mentions start with Groundhog's Day. And while it may not be considered a time travel movie, I consider it a time travel movie because it's Bill Murray's character's consciousness skipping back in time. You know, he's reliving the same day over and over again.
Well, Google considers it a time travel movie. I looked this stuff up, man. Google put it in the time travel category, so you're in, and they own the world.
It was on there. And it's such a fun movie. And every Groundhog's Day, it's on TV over and over again. And I love that they do that. It's a fun movie, and I can't really say anything bad about this movie. It's just such a fun ride.
One of those movies that just missed my list, but the few times I have seen it, I've really enjoyed it. I love Bill Murray.
The next one on my honorable mentions is The Butterfly Effect. Now, I haven't seen this movie in a long time. I didn't get a chance to rewatch it before talking about it and doing this list, but I remember liking it a lot because it was so weird. He can control certain things about his past when he has these blackouts, and he can change his future, and it's a very sad and depressing movie because the way it ends, it's just
You want to know something sad and depressing? I was positive that I put this movie on my list somewhere, and I just glanced down at my list. It's not on my list. I'm a little upset because it was like the first movie I watched where I went, oh my gosh, Ashton Kutcher can act.
Yeah. I remember thinking that too, because I think the only other movie that I'd seen him in was Dude, Where's My Car?
I think Dude, Where's My Car and that 70s show. It's all I'd seen him in previous to that movie.
It's a really tough movie to get through because it is so intense in certain parts, but it's a good one, for sure.
It is a good one. I really enjoyed The Butterfly Effect. I'm kind of kicking myself that it's not even in my honorable mentions. That one just escaped me, but yeah, I enjoyed that. Like you, I have not seen it in a long time, so it's not like I could sit here and hold the most intelligible conversation about it, because it has been a long time. But just the effect of him looking at his journal, and then the words on the page vibrate or whatever, and all of a sudden he's back in time, his consciousness is back in time in that memory, changing the past and stuff like that. And all the different ways that he changed the future. It reminded me of season 3 of The Flash, the way Barry Allen is constantly trying to fix it, but he's making it worse. And he broke everything with Flashpoint and tried to put it all back together. It's the same thing to me with Butterfly Effect. Watching him constantly try to reset everything, and it just not working out.
What a great concept that is. My last honorable mention is X-Men Days of Future Past. I really wanted to put this in my top 5, but there were other movies that I thought were better. It is one of my favorite X-Men movies. I mean, there are a lot of X-Men movies now, but it's probably number 3 or 4 for me. But it's really the only one with the time travel aspect. So, it's a fun movie. It kind of rewrites the whole X-Men franchise because they kind of made a mistake with X-Men 3. But
and the Wolverine origin movies,
yes,
they made a few big ones, yeah.
They were like, you know what, we got to go back and we got to fix some stuff. And this one, I thought they wrote it pretty well to justify that. And that's why it almost made it to my list. So let's get into our top 5. Durbin, what do you have at number 5?
All right, coming in for me at my number 5 was Project Almanac. And I am not a fan of the whole found footage deal, but there were elements of this movie that I really did enjoy. I thought all the characters are fun. I think I've only seen this movie once. I saw it once with my wife. She wasn't very interested in it, and I wasn't interested enough to go buy it out on Blu-ray, so I've only seen it once. But the fact that it made my list and hit number 5 after only one viewing like that, I mean, it left a pretty good impact for me. So I really did enjoy this movie. I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was so fun and trippy that they discover time travel is possible because the older version of our lead character is in the home video of his 7th birthday party. And so that's really interesting. It kind of takes this whole movie and makes this movie like this complete circle. And so I like it when you could do a nice, neat, closed loop with time travel movies, which is so hard to do. But I liked how this movie did that. It still fell into some time travel traps for me, like the one kid who went to retake his test over and over and over again. When you go back into the past, there is the past version of yourself that's already there. So, like, he should be running into all these different versions of himself each time he goes back in time to retake this test, and that kind of annoyed me that they just decided to skip that rule for this. And there's a couple places where they skip that rule, even though they established the rule. When you go back in time, there's that past version of yourself that's walking around too. So it still fell to some of those time travel conundrums from movies, but overall, like, I enjoyed it. Like, it was a pretty good movie.
That's another movie that I haven't seen that I've wanted to see, but just haven't had that much of a drive to see it. It's like, if I see it, I'll see it.
It's a rental. I don't think you should rush out to see it if you haven't seen it. But when you do get around to watching it, I don't think you'll hate it. But you're not going to go, best movie ever.
Right. Yeah, like you said about the found footage style, I like it when it's well done. But there are some movies that do the found footage style that should not have been that style. But when it's done right, I like it.
It's true. I still wish Project Almanac was not that, though. I am not a fan of found footage. It just does not work well for me.
So my number 5 is The Time Machine with Guy Pearce.
Yes!
This movie, I really like it a lot. I love the idea of it being set in the past, and then he discovers time travel. So he's trying to save his fiancée, and he just can't because time is something that you can't change. And so he decides to, travel into the future, see what the future holds. And there are so many interesting points where he stops, and I forget what year he ends up stopping in. And like I said in our future movies, with Oblivion, the moon is breaking apart in one of the futures that he stops in, and it's causing catastrophic effects to the Earth, as it really would. And I for some reason, it's very bleak and it's very sad to think about, but I actually like that aspect of it. And he eventually, he hits like this earthquake in the time traveling, and he ends up traveling, I think it's 800,000 years into the future, where humans are like they're not the dominant species on Earth anymore. There's these new human hybrid or things, something that they live in caves and they're really strong and they hunt humans or something. It's really weird, and when I first saw it, I was freaked out by those things.
It's like they are humans, but they've evolved weird because they live underground. They do all that digging, so now they're really strong. They're super pale. They're weird looking.
I don't remember exactly when this movie came out, but I remember being kind of creeped out by those things. And I hope the future doesn't hold those in store for us. I mean, that's like 800,000 years into the future. I'll be long gone by that.
Yeah, like you, I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but I remember liking it when I watched it. Again, probably should be on my list, but I haven't seen it in so long. But I remember watching it and just really enjoying it.
Yeah, it's such a basic title, and I couldn't leave it off of a time travel list being called The Time Machine. It fits too well, I guess.
Well, my number 4 is... I kind of cheated. Are you okay with me cheating? Because I cheated.
Oh, of course.
I have 3 movies in number 4, but in my defense, they all belong to the same universe. And my number 4 is Star Trek 4, Star Trek First Contact, and then Star Trek 2009. So, those are all really fun time travel movies for me, and I kind of just counted them as one since they're all part of the same universe. I mean, I loved Star Trek 4. And I hadn't seen these movies before, and about a year ago, I just decided to go through and watch all the Star Trek movies. And when I got to Star Trek 4, it's like I had just pause and laugh because I thought that movie was fantastic. That they traveled all the way from their future back to the 1970s or something like that. And just a lot of great scenes where Captain Kirk pawns his glasses off at a pawn shop to get some money, and they're looking down at this $100 and, they're unfamiliar with money because of the time that they're from, and they're just like, is $100 gonna work? Like, I mean, is that a lot of money? And, I'm laughing because, like, now in 2017, no. But, like, a lot of great moments like that. The fact that they're trying to save the whales and Spock, like, communicates with the whales and things like that. I just thought Star Trek 4 was hilarious. And then First Contact was the first great Next Generation movie. And it was really cool to watch that moment of First Contact and watch that with, like, I'm sorry, I grew up on Next Generation more than the Captain Kirk stuff, so Picard, he is my Starfleet captain. I love Jean-Luc Picard. So to watch this movie where they chase the Borg, his nemesis, back in time, just after World War III, right when we make first contact with the Vulcans, and the Borg are trying to change that, so they got to defend the past and save the future. I just thought that was such a fascinating plot and things like that. And then finally, the new Star Trek, the 2009. This might be controversial, like especially when you get into, Into Darkness and things like that. Like, people hate it because it breaks lore. Now that I've learned more about lore, I understand how it kind of breaks the Star Trek lore a lot. But nonetheless, that initial Star Trek 2009, that concept of them traveling all the way back in time and Kirk's dad dying, and how much that changed everything, and everything seriously resetting. So now what does the future hold? I thought that was fascinating, and I loved that first Star Trek movie there.
I personally love Star Trek, and like you said, the Next Generation was the Star Trek that I grew up watching as well. And yeah, Captain Picard was my captain. I love Jean-Luc Picard, and Patrick Stewart. He was so awesome. And First Contact, I think that was the first Star Trek movie that I'd ever seen. And yeah, and it holds a special place in my heart. And not only because of that, because it's a great movie. And the Borg is like the ultimate bad guy. They're the worst, They're almost worse than the Klingons.
Oh yeah. I mean, they just want to grab you, assimilate you, and steal away everything that makes you you, so you're just one of them. It's like, it's a creepy thing. And then to see this movie open with Picard's post-traumatic stress from the time in the show where he did get assimilated. Like, I mean, that's all good stuff.
And obviously, the 2009 one is one of my favorite Star Trek movies of all time because it brought it into a new generation. And it made it more accessible to younger audiences, and it kind of Star Warsified Star Trek. It just made it a little more exciting.
It definitely did. But, it was fun. And I thought what they did with that Star Trek movie, I was blown away. I mean, I remember seeing that with my wife. We saw it opening day, and I had chills in the first 10 minutes when Chris Hemsworth is captaining that ship, and he's Kirk's dad, and he, like, just barrels that thing right into the enemy ship. I mean, it was incredible.
What an emotional opening scene for that movie. It hits you right away. So my number 4 is, again, kind of just too easy of a title to include in this time travel list. It's called The Time Traveler's Wife. Eric Bana, Rachel McAdams. It's such an interesting take on time travel because Eric Bana's character is the one who travels through time. He can't control it. He just randomly transports through time, and he doesn't know when or where he's going to be. He just knows that it's eventually going to happen. And what an interesting concept to use for this. And it's hard to follow at first because you're trying to make sense of it all, but once it starts playing out near the end, you're like, oh my goodness, genius.
Yes. I liked the movie, and like you're saying, I loved the concept that he couldn't control it, and so he would just find himself in the past or find himself in the future, and he'd have to just get his bearings. Okay, where am I now? What's going on now? And especially when, I hope this isn't too spoilery, but when he sees himself die, and he doesn't know what leads up to that. And so, okay, where am I traveling? Am I traveling to the point where after I'm gone? Or am I traveling? I mean, so like all of that was such an interesting thing. My only problem with the movie and why it didn't make my list, I was just bored. I thought the concept was really interesting. I don't know. I just was a little bit bored.
Yeah, it doesn't really have much excitement to it until the point where he sees himself dying, and it's like, okay, now it's getting serious. Yeah, that gut punch of when she finally realizes, Rachel McAdams' character, she's like, I've never seen you as an old man. It's like, oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But their performances were great. Eric Bana and Rachel McAdams were awesome. So even though I thought I was a little slow and I was a little bored, I was still interested by the concept, and I thought those two did a great job in it. So for me, at my number 3, continuing with my space theme with the Star Treks being at my number 4, my number 3 is Interstellar. I loved that movie. That movie is amazing. But what amazes me most about it, Hans Zimmer's score in this movie, and my wife thinks I'm weird because honestly, that whole scene where he's in the Tesseract, I get it. I've seen the movie enough now. I've come to the place I understand what the Tesseract is. I understand what's going on there. It's still weird for me. And it still feels weird even when I get there. Like that whole Tesseract thing is weird. So my wife thought I was weird that I bought the movie simply because the musical score to me was just that good. But it was. I just thought it was so cool. But it was an interesting time travel movie for me because, you see in this movie, and they're saying gravity anomalies have been leading everybody to this point in time. And then you find out it's, Matthew McConaughey, he's in this Tesseract, and he's causing these gravity anomalies, which lead, the past version of himself, almost like this divine appointment, on up to this future that he's currently at. So, a lot of interesting things. Really weird that his daughter was in her 90s as he's sitting at her bedside watching her die. It's oh my gosh. So and just the fascinating thing of him landing on that planet. I don't know if you'd consider this time travel, but just the fact that on the planet, time being relative, that time went by however it went by, so that he's on that planet for 7 hours, but 30 years, 20 years go by, to the other guy on the shuttle. So a lot of very fascinating things about time and black holes and time travel, and kind of the way they brought the movie full circle, when they're going through the wormhole, where Anne Hathaway makes contact thinking it's one of the aliens, but it's really Matthew McConaughey she makes contact with as he's traveling back out the wormhole to a whole different time. And so things like that to me were really interesting with Interstellar.
I absolutely agree with everything you just said, and I love that movie. And again, I'm kind of upset that I didn't put this one on my list, but I think I found other movies that I liked more as time travel movies. But again, this movie is one of my favorite all-time movies. And like you said, that scene where they're on the planet that's just water and those huge tidal waves, and they're on it for a couple hours and years go by. Such a gut punch when they get back to the shuttle, and the guy is much older, the other guy that they left up there, and they're just like, why didn't you sleep? And he's just like, I kind of gave up hope that you were coming back. It's like, oh my gosh, this poor guy. It's only been a couple hours for them, and they're still young. And it's such a powerful movie, and I love that movie.
Actually, I think that scene probably held one of the biggest gut punches for me, just because of the tension of McConaughey didn't want to go down there to begin with because of his children, and they did their math really carefully about the time passage, and then things happen. But not only do things happen so that they were down there longer than they were meant to, but they did their math wrong. So more time passed than they thought was supposed to pass. So it was, that scene to me was just a huge, huge gut punch. And then he watches the videos of his kids all grown up and he starts bawling his eyes out. I mean, I was sitting there in the theater trying to be like, I'm not sad. I'm not sad.
Oh, but you were, right?
Oh my gosh, I was torn up inside, man. I was torn up.
Oh yeah, same here. And like you said, the music, it's phenomenal. I love the church organ, and this movie put me into this really nerdy just place in my life for several weeks or months where I was just looking up videos on black holes and other space anomalies, and I'm just like, I gotta learn all this stuff about this stuff because it was such a good movie and I loved it, and
I was looking up that stuff too, man. It was so fascinating. I'd be like, how much of this is true? The only thing that remains weird is the Tesseract. That is it.
Yep, that's the only thing, but it's still such a cool concept. Well, my number 3 is, again, I had a bunch of Tom Cruise movies, well, 2 Tom Cruise movies, on our Movies Set in the Future over on Durban's channel for that video, and I got another Tom Cruise movie here with Edge of Tomorrow. This is like the alien invasion version of Groundhog's Day, where Tom Cruise's character, he keeps reliving this moment or this day over and over again because of this alien that he killed, and its blood got on him or something, and he was able to keep reliving this moment so that when he dies, his consciousness reverts back to this one moment. And again, it's an interesting concept for taking it from Groundhog's Day and putting it into a military, futuristic, alien invasion story. It's fun, it's funny, it's action-packed, and when he loses that ability near the end of the movie, it's like everything's coming down to this one moment, and he doesn't have that crutch to go back on, so go back in time and relive it and master everything again. And I just found this movie to be super entertaining.
I would have put this on my list, but I was held back because I thought this movie was amazing, 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 and then he loses the power, and suddenly he can survive everything like he's Superman.
It becomes too easy for him at that point.
It does, and it's like, okay, and then, but see, that wasn't what did it in for me, because that's a movie thing. Movies do that, so whatever. What made this hard for me was the very, very end, where he blows up the Queen, right? And he wakes up on the helicopter before the Queen was blown up, but the Queen is blown up.
Yeah.
And I could not I was fine with everything else this movie did, but I could not wrap my head around that, because if they blew up the Queen, then either there should have been no time traveling whatsoever, and he bravely gave his life, and that's the end of that, or if it was able to time travel and reset things, then how it should be alive. So, like, I don't know. Like, maybe I need to watch it again. Maybe there's an explanation that I missed. But yeah, that part, I struggled with that. That's why it's not on my list. Otherwise, though, fantastic film. Like, I had a lot of fun with it.
It did break the rules of time travel at the end, and that's probably my biggest negative of it. It's just kind of like, well, we don't know how else to end it, so here. That's how I felt like the writers were doing in their writing booth. Like, you know what? Let's just write it back at the beginning.
Well, my number 2 is one of your honorable mentions. XMen, Days of Future Past. I loved this movie. I loved it. Just freaking loved this movie. It reminded me a little bit of Butterfly Effect, where it was his consciousness transported into the past. But I thought, okay, if you're going to reboot a franchise, and it's hard to reboot a franchise because as bad as the franchise is gone, I mean, Halle Berry is Storm. Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. Patrick Stewart, he is Professor X. As much as the young cast is a lot of fun, to reboot it and just kind of overwrite X-Men 1 and X-Men 2, that's kind of hard to do. Like, you want X-Men 3 to disappear, but I mean, I thought this was just a stroke of genius. That they would do it this way, have the Sentinels coming in and attacking, and then send Wolverine back into the past and create this alternate timeline, and the way that they would create that. Like, I thought that was really interesting, that he couldn't wake up at the wrong point, because then it would start to solidify the wrong things in history. And so that whole tension of whatever happens, he's got to remain unconscious and in the past there until the job is done. Because should he wake up at any point, who knows what could get solidified in history. And I thought, wow, that is such an interesting take on time travel. And I feel like the continuity of X-Men is just a mess anyway, so I really wasn't super upset with any continuity errors that might have been there. But I think they took it right back to the proper place in the past, where it doesn't mess with too many continuity things. And then, you know, it resets the timeline, so from that point forward, it almost doesn't even matter anymore. And so, like, I just thought that was great. And then Quicksilver. Like, that was the best introduction to Quicksilver ever.
Yeah, his scene alone was, that was awesome.
Oh, yeah. I had so much fun with that movie, though. It became one of my favorite time travel movies. So, like, I don't know. I love Days of Future Past. I had a blast with that movie.
What works so well for that movie is not only did they like reset everything to make for a easier way to rewrite everything, but they also set it up very closely to how it originally happened, with Wolverine kind of being saved by William Stryker. It's like, okay, here he is, he's about to be experimented on again. So that's not really going to change too much, but yeah, they played it off so well, and the time travel aspect was very well dealt with.
Yeah, I think so. Time travel is so hard to do because, I mean, you open up all kinds of doors as soon as you throw time travel into the mix. But I thought they did a great job with time travel in this, and they used it effectively to reset X-Men while maintaining the original cast and giving us something great like Logan, and it still makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So my number 2 is Looper, directed by Rian Johnson. And this movie is the reason that I am, well, not the only reason, but a big reason why I am super excited for Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, because I love how this movie handles the time travel. It's basically, people are sent back in time to be killed. And what a terrible way to use time travel.
Yeah, I know. But hey, it's human, right?
Yeah.
Probably what humans would do.
Probably. And basically, these people, they're called loopers. They're supposed to kill people that are sent back in time. And basically, what happens is when their future self is sent back in time and they kill them, they are retired and they get to live a life of luxury until the point where they're sent back in time to be killed. So it's kind of an endless loop, hence the name Looper. But Bruce Willis is one of the main characters. He shares the main character with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and they made Joseph Gordon-Levitt's facial features to match Bruce Willis's, and they did a phenomenal job. And Bruce Willis's character is sent back in time originally. He's killed. Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character grows up. He's sent back in time as Bruce Willis, but he fights back, and everything's thrown out of sync. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt is after him because Bruce Willis is trying to kill who he thinks is going to be the big leader of this organization that is sending people back in time to be killed. So, and the twist of it, it's so well done that it turns out that, spoiler alert, he is pretty much the cause of all this. And my goodness, just it's handled very well, and they try to explain the time travel. Most of it just goes over my head, but it's still fun to try and understand it. But there's so many good points where they use that time travel aspect, where there's this one character who also failed to kill his future self, and they end up capturing the present day's version of him, and they start torturing him and cutting off limbs, and the future him is trying to save the past him, and he's losing these limbs in real time, and it's so crazy how they do it, and it's well done. I can't. Oh man.
Yeah, I thought Looper was a pretty good movie. It was not my favorite movie, but there was a lot of stuff in it that I thought was so well done. I thought Joseph Gordon-Levitt, they started to make him look a little weird because they tried really hard to make him look more like a younger version of Bruce Willis. So I kind of commend them on doing that, but at the same time, there's a part of it that I was like, that just looks a little weird to me. But, whatever. It really wasn't too bad. My favorite part of the movie, though, was that kid. That kid, oh my gosh, one of the best child actors I've seen. the expressions on this kid's face, those moments where he had like had that rage, and I think he killed those agents or whatever that were coming in to get him, and I mean, just, oh my gosh, the rage that kid had, the way he did it, like, that kid was creepy. Like, I could see him growing up to be like such an evil dude. And then what an interesting little twist there at the end, as Joseph Gordon-Levitt flipped the gun around to take it on himself to spare that kid that horrible future and to spare the world. So I was just like, wow, fascinating.
Yeah, that kid, yeah, those scenes where he's just screaming, you don't get to really hear it, but you see it. And oh man, the idea of them having like these supernatural powers was, I did not expect it at all.
Neither did I. And I thought that was interesting.
I thought it was just going to be like a regular time travel movie. But they're like, how about we throw in some superpowers in there too? So it was cool, but...
Well, that shows that Mr. Johnson here has got some practice with the Force.
Yes. All right, so that is our 5 through 2. We are moving on to our number ones, and I'm pretty sure I know what you have for your number one.
I'm pretty sure I know what yours is too.
Yeah, I'm going to let you take it away. Go ahead, Durbin.
Oh man, it's just the Back to the Future trilogy. I'm cheating here just like I cheated with number 4. Like originally I put Back to the Future Part 2 down here on the list as my number 1 just because like Part 2 was always my favorite. But then the more I think about it, the whole trilogy is just freaking fantastic. I love this trilogy. I mean, it's to the point, what do I say? I mean, seriously, what can I say? You either have seen it or you haven't. You either like it or you don't. And if you love it, then you're awesome. And if you don't like it, well, we could still be friends, but this is an issue we're going to have to work around. But oh my gosh, it's just a classic. I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say about it.
That is obviously my number 1 as well. And just they're such fun movies. The characters, Marty McFly and Doc Emmett Brown, played by Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. You couldn't have a more perfect duo.
No, you could not. It's amazing.
They work so well, and like you said, number 2 is my favorite because it was so cool to see the future, what 2015 will look like. We're going to have hover cars and all this cool technology. Hoverboards.
Wow. Can you believe their future is now 2 years in our past? That's what's mind-boggling to me.
It's scary. I have the newspaper that they released somewhere in this room. I don't remember where I put it. It should be in the background. I don't know why I didn't put it there. But it's so weird to think, yeah, that was 2 years ago. All 3 of them, like you said, they're basically flawless. I mean, they obey like all the rules of time travel. I mean, they kind of set the bar so high for time travel movies.
They really do.
That no time travel movie since then has really been able to do it quite as well. And it's so perfect, and there's really not much more to say because they're just such great movies.
I keep wanting to add more. I really do. But I mean, what can I say? It's Back to the Future, flux capacitor, 88 miles per hour, a hovercraft time-traveling DeLorean. Golly.
Yeah. Even the third one, while some people don't really like the third one, I still love the third one. It's amazing.
It's the Old West. It brings this trilogy full circle. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And the music is awesome. The theme song to Back to the Future is one of my favorites. It might be second to Star Wars, but it's so awesome. Listening to that song when you're driving down the highway is dangerous because you want to go so fast.
Oh, it is. It really is. Every time I hear a rumor that they're going to make a part 4 or a reboot or some version of a continuation, I always get so nervous because what can you do? This trilogy, it's perfect. It doesn't need an update. It doesn't need a continuation. It doesn't need a reboot. It doesn't need anything. It needs to be left alone. Because like you said, the musical score, the look and feel of the film, Marty and Doc, like them together on screen, all of it is just so classic. It's honestly, it's untouchable. And to go back and to try to mess with that in any way, shape, or form, no. That's just not gonna work. That is not gonna work.
They couldn't even make a spin-off of this with completely unrelated characters. It wouldn't have the same charm, it wouldn't have the same magic. I don't think it would work as well. They're too perfect of movies.
They really are. They're brilliant. They're brilliant.
Well, that is our top 5 time travel movies. What did you guys have on your list? Did you guys have Back to the Future on your list? I'm curious to know. I know Durban's curious to know. Let us know in the comments below. And definitely check out Durban's channel, Durbania, where we went and gave our top 5 future movies that are set in the future. It was a lot of fun. And definitely, guys, just check out Durban's channel. He's got a lot of great content. Go subscribe to him. And Durban, it was a lot of fun having you. Yeah, just go ahead and tell everybody where we can find you one more time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for having me, because it's a blast to get to be on your channel and all that fun stuff and to do this topic. So thank you for reaching out with this idea. This is really cool. So thank you for that. And you can check me out on Durbania. Just type that Durbania into a YouTube search. I should be the one and only that pops up. You can also find me on Twitter at World of Durbania or Facebook.com/Durbania.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the future. Or if you watch some of our older videos, I'll see you in the past. And make sure you guys click that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. And make sure you hit that bell icon next to the subscribe button so you can be notified of when we upload new content. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.